morning. Thanks to Lucas for inviting the Holocaust Museum to speak to you this morning. He invited us to talk about the Conscience Unconference Using Social Media for Good, which is going to be held at the museum on Saturday, December 5th. I'm guessing everyone here knows what an unconference is, but for the sake of the video, it's basically a participant-driven event, more informal than a regular conference, where the participants are really in charge of moving the agenda forward. So the impetus for this was that I've been at the museum for about 6 months been to a few museum-wide conferences talking about social media, and it was apparent that our needs at the Holocaust Museum, where our mission is to educate about the history of the Holocaust, preserve the memory of those who suffered, and to foster critical thinking among the audience to really think about their roles in a democracy, were not really being addressed in these large-scale conversations. So I approached the managing director at the Center for History and New Media, George Mason, where I knew they had created social media projects about sensitive subjects and vulnerable constituencies, and asked them if they wanted to partner on a one-day event, which they did, thankfully. And thankfully, we also got the approval of our Greenlight Committee at the museum, which is an interdepartmental committee that approves public programming and events. Fortunately, the Center for History and New Media, another draw of partnering with them is that they had hosted a few unconferences. We basically borrowed their model and also borrowed their WordPress blog template, which is, you're seeing here, tweaked for our event. We opened it up for applications in September. We had to ask for applications because of space and budget restraints. So out of about 100 applications, we accepted about 60 people. And we opened the call to anyone interested in the subject of using social media for social good, basically. We wanted a diverse set of people with different backgrounds, experiences, skill sets, so that potentially really, real partnerships could actually come out of the conference. So we have people coming from the museum world, libraries, archives, academia, nonprofit news organizations, nonprofit genocide prevention organizations, independent filmmakers, school teachers, and college and graduate students. So at this stage, after we emailed people that they were accepted, they are posting their proposals to the blog, which you're starting to see here. We're asking people to just put out there what they want to talk about in sessions and then comment on them. And a few days before the unconference, we'll look at all of them. The organizing committee will look at all of them, sort of combine them by themes, create a preliminary agenda, which we'll make available at the breakfast the day of the unconference for people to tweak. So they can pull their session out of somewhere we've grouped it or create a new one or whatever. And that's about it. And unfortunately, we could only have about 60 people there at the museum. So we are hoping that a very dynamic conversation will also happen through Twitter, of course. The hashtag is hashtag CONCONF. And we are also sort of talking about potentially a Second Life session, because we've actually had inquiries about that so that other people, especially internationally, could participate.